Yes, I'm still here, Hollywood. And coming up on today's episode...
I think somebody else was saying the other day that people touch you more when you were on a sitcom because they think they can, that they should, that you're their buddy. A number of people that grab me and say, "My mom loves you," and I'm like, "It's great, but can you let go?"
Everybody knows everybody from Canada is nice.
We are nice. To your face. But when I thought back and realized my dreams as a 10-year-old were that I wanted to star on Get Smart. I watched MASH and All in the Family with my dad, and I wanted that. When I realized that was a job that you could have.
Every once in a while, a show comes along that not only entertains, but also opens viewer minds to a world that they knew nothing about, and maybe were a little afraid of. Starting in the late 1990s and again recently, one of the funniest shows on TV went a long way in easing some preconceived notions about how some people in our world live their lives. This is Still Here Hollywood. I'm Steve Kmetko. Join me today with actor Eric McCormack of Will and Grace. Hi, Eric.
Steve Kmetko.
How you doing?
Oh, man, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you, too. How's life?
Life is great and varied at the moment, which is nice. I have to say, I have to lead with this and we'll talk about it. I'm sure that Sean Hayes and I are doing a podcast about our days on Will and Grace, and so we tackle a new episode every episode. And last week we did an episode that had a Steve Kmetko joke.
Oh, good.
Do you remember it?
Yes, I do. I remember it. I recorded it.
It was Sean going to some big audition, which turned out to be an audition for like nothing, for some corporate film. But he was assured that E was going to be there, and he said, maybe I'll get to meet Steve Kmetko.
Yes, I remember that. I had friends from the East Coast calling, from the Midwest. You got to watch because here in California, everything's 2 hours later.
That's right.
So yeah, I recorded it.
Yeah,
it's on my reel. Tell me, when you reflect back on Will and Grace, what are your fondest memories?
Wow, there's so many special things about it just as a show in itself, but one of my fondest memories is how life was, that we've always lived in the neighborhood, and my son was born here during the show, and because Jimmy Burrows directed every episode and he doesn't like to work past 2 p.m., our days were so short, so that the memories of getting up on, say, a Wednesday morning, and there was a new script in the mail that had been dropped off, and sort of having coffee with that. We didn't have to be at work till 10, playing with my kid or whatever, reading the new script, going in, having nothing but laughs. I mean, just so much fun, and spoiled by the hours, and then going home and having a life. There was something we were so lucky to have that, because so many people, their hit show that made them, like, I don't know, X-Files or something. You're in the woods for 14 hours every night in the freezing cold. This was just such a beautiful experience, and of course a lot of friends for life.
Do you miss it?
Yes, I do. It's so funny to meet people these days, particularly young people that are discovering the show or whatever. But it's always news to them somehow that we had real live audiences, and that's what we look forward to every week. Was Tuesday night, and I miss that. I miss the build-up. On the Monday, we'd been rehearsing for a few days, and we'd present the show to the crew, and they're hearing new jokes, and they're laughing, and then Tuesday night was magic. I really miss that, because as a guy that came from the theater, it was the perfect thing. It was like, I have a TV show, but I still get to do a little play every week.
You just did some theater in New York, didn't you?
Yeah, it was heaven, because that's where I got my start. But I got my start in Canadian theater, and I didn't play Hamlet. I got my start in small productions, sometimes in small roles, but that was the first 10 years of my career. I was 28 before I did a Canadian television audition. So the theater is so much a part of how I judge myself, I think. I never wanted to be one of those guys that stopped doing it or lost touch with it. And I've been really lucky with New York that it seemed every 11 years I go back and do Broadway. The first one was was 2001, and it was The Music Man. And a revival of The Best Man 11 years later, Gore Vidal play. And then this last one was so much joy. I can't even tell you. It's a new play that feels very much like an old play. It feels like an old Coward show, written by a young woman named Sandy Rustin. And it was just stylistically outrageous and hilarious, and audiences didn't know what to expect. And I had the most fun.
And Sean just won a Tony on Broadway playing Oscar Levant. I saw it in Chicago. He was doing the opening was at the Goodman Theater.
Yeah, I saw it there too.
Yeah, it was great. And he was so terrific. Did the two of you compare notes about?
We did because, first of all, weirdly, Debra Messing was doing a show in New York at the same, because I think it was called Birthday Candles, at the same time that Sean was just launching his show, Goodnight Oscar, in Chicago. So I gave myself, a couple of years ago, I gave myself a little birthday trip. And I just flew in and surprised her, and I flew to Chicago and surprised him. But then when he finally got to Broadway, 2 months later, I was not only there at the same time, but we were on the same street. Our theaters were 2 blocks apart. We were both on 44th. And the number of people that would come to the stage door every night for an autograph or whatever, and say, we just saw Sean's show. He doesn't come to the door. He doesn't sign. Thank you. I said, I know.
He was so busy in that show. And he played Rhapsody in Blue. Was that it?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty stunning what he did in that show.
There were pictures of him soaking his arms after the performance, because I think not a lot of people know that he's a certified concert pianist.
Oh, he's certified. He's certifiable. I didn't know it either back in the day. It was not something he threw around. When we started the show, I was like 35. I think Megan was 37. We'd been around. Sean was pretty young. He was 28 and just out of college. But what I didn't realize was he was out of college for conducting. Like and he's been playing forever. So he sat down. I might have been at Jimmy Burrows' house one night. We were having a dinner early on in the run, and he sat down at the piano, and our jaws just dropped. And he was talking at the same time. He was just kibitzing and playing Gershwin or Beethoven or something. Bananas. So I hate him a lot.
He's very talented.
Yeah.
And very funny.
Indeed.
But so are you.
Thank you.
You
couldn't get Sean. That's what it is, right?
No,
I was like, God damn it! All right.
Oh, we'll get him.
The other guy. What's the other guy's name?
If I could go back for a second to Will and Grace, when you first started it, being a gay man, I can relate to this. You were asked to play. It was a gay role, gay character, Will Truman. Did you have any reservations? Do you recall at the time about playing Will?
Not about that part. No. I had played at that point. Probably 6 gay roles, 4 of them on television, 2 of them on stage. It was all I wanted to do was the Rocky Horror Show. I mean, none of that was scary to me. I think the only thing that was scary was that sort of be careful what you wish for thing, because I read that script and I knew it was the one, and that was scary because it's like.
Now you have to prove it.
Well,
back yourself up.
I didn't even, because at that point, like I said, I was so ready. I'd been auditioning for sitcoms, and I've been around for several pilot seasons. I was so, in my mid-30s, ready for my show, whatever that was going to be. And I read this one and I went, oh my God, I think this is my part. But that means, because I'd so flitted about roles for years and years in the theater, that this is the one that's going to be on my tombstone. So I better like it. And I loved it. I mean, the thing about it that scared me that I might be an icon in that or for that community is actually the greatest fringe benefit of it's one of the great privileges of my life.
We're very loyal.
Well, you are, but you didn't have to be. That's the other thing too. I think that scared me is it's a bigger deal now than it was then. People didn't necessarily expect that a gay man would have to play a gay man, nor did we expect straight guys to play straight roles, certainly not on Broadway. But the community did not have to be welcoming to the show or to me. GLAAD didn't have to be welcoming. But they were so much. And
well, it also tells you what a good job you did. I mean,
I hope so.
I can remember I was not, when Will and Grace first went on the air, I was at home doing something in the kitchen, and I had the TV on, and I really wasn't watching. but I heard the humor, and I stopped what I was doing and sat down to watch it, and it was just done so well.
Yeah, I mean that was the flavor if you're just listening to Friends or versus Will and Grace, yeah, we were a gay show, and the writers were unapologetic about writing those two characters, or three characters if you include Karen.
Yes, if you include Karen and Leslie, wonderful Leslie.
Oh, and yeah,
how tragic about his passing.
Terrible.
Do you stay in touch with everybody from the show?
To a degree, Sean and I now are talking all the time, which is great. I just spoke to Debra last week and tried to set her up with someone, and I haven't spoken to Megan in a while.
Because I noticed when I was researching and stuff, one of the questions they always ask people who are responding to the internet ask questions like, are Eric and Debra friends? Do they talk?
Yeah.
And I've noticed it's the same about all the sitcoms. Are they still friends? Are they still friends?
You're so right. And I've become close friends with Jason Alexander over the years, and so as a Seinfeld fan, that's one of the dopey questions that came out of my mouth the first time. Is like, you and Jerry hang out? Because I think that's the nature of television, but particularly of sitcom, when you watch people in one apartment week after week after week, and they don't even knock. They just come into each other's apartment. You just want to know that that's real. And I think somebody else was saying the other day that people touch you more when you were on a sitcom because they think they can, that they should, that you're their buddy. A number of people that grab me and say, "My mom loves you," and I'm like, "It's great, but can you let go?" That's very intimate.
Yes, yeah, I had an experience like that once.
Yeah. Yeah, you're even more so. You're you.
I was
talking to the camera
to a degree.
Yeah.
I was flirting with a waiter once, and he said, "My mom loves you."
Yes.
Which is not what you want to hear.
Well,
anyway, that's neither here nor there. What are you looking forward to doing next? What do you have on the docket?
I'm doing a show. I did a show last year that I'm really proud of. I'm just a small part of, called The Other Black Girl on Hulu. You can watch it now. It is streaming. All 10 episodes are streaming. I think it's amazing. Based on a big novel from about 3 or 4 years ago. And the three young women that star in it, clearly I'm not the black girl or the other black girl, but the three young women that star in it are so great. And I just want more people to see this show, and I really am hoping to do a second season. So, Hulu, if you're listening. We shot in Atlanta. We had the greatest time. And it was I didn't think it was that different a role for me, because I've played a lot of bad guys. People don't necessarily see those series. In the last few years, I've done a few. I did a show called Slasher a couple of years ago for the Shudder Network.
Were you the title character, Slasher?
You'd think so. But in fact, I was there was some mystery character of all these characters. A little sort of Agatha Christie, but a lot more bloody. I was just playing the meanest asshole son of a bitch ever. It was so much fun. But the guy I'm playing on The Other Black Girl is not that. He's deceptively kind, but there's something dark there. And it's been really interesting for people to see the show and say, I've never seen you do that before. And I'm like, oh, I didn't think so. I thought it was just kind of me being charming, but clearly there's a darkness in my...
I don't believe that.
In my soul. That's right.
Everybody knows everybody from Canada is nice.
We are nice. To your face.
Okay. Do you think being born and raised in Canada had any impact on you dealing with Hollywood and working in the business?
100%.
How?
I think just the joke you just said about Canadians are nice. It's sort of true. Like, I don't know that many Canadians that didn't come down here with a different sort of set of people skills. We weren't raised with the expectation that, which is ironic because it's this vaguely socialist country, but we weren't raised with the expectation that we were going to win all the marbles, and nobody told us we could be president. There's a sense of community and of earning your keep. I never expected if I always expected that I was going to make it in somehow, but I didn't think I was going to make it at 21 or 25. That I was going to apprentice through my 20s and become the actor I wanted to become and have a confidence, and with that, a gratitude, I think. I think when people say, you're so nice, you say please and thank you, and you say house weird. But it also comes with a sense of where you are in the world. You know, people from America say, "Hey, I'm American." And people from Canada go, "I'm sorry, but I'm Canadian." They say it quieter and they apologize. So I think that helped to that's why there's so many Canadians working here. We weed our way in slowly and politely.
Did you ever have an idea of going to Hollywood, though? When you were, you hear about the British bands who felt they didn't make it until they made it in America. Did you, as an actor, early on, think about making it or coming to Hollywood?
It's an interesting question for me because by the time I was sort of, I guess, 16.
Established?
Well, no, by the time I was 16, my dreams were very theater and very local. I just wanted to make it at the Stratford Festival, where I eventually got an apprenticeship, and I wanted to make it in Toronto theater. When I thought back and realized my dreams as a 10-year-old were that I wanted to star on Get Smart. I watched MASH and All in the Family with my dad, and I wanted that. When I realized that was a job that you could have, all those years later, I had a really sweet moment at the Emmys. When I won my single Emmy, I was staring at it and remembering that that's the exact award that Don Adams won, lead actor in a comedy for Get Smart, and I guess 50 years earlier. Is that right? No, 30 years earlier. So that there was an ambition as a kid. The games I played. I was not a sports kid. I was not a popular kid. I had very few friends. So the games I played in my backyard or in my room were very detailed. And I looked back one day and realized that I always ran the credits before my game. My game was not just a game. It was a television show. So somehow I was gearing myself up to be on people's idiot boxes.
Idiot boxes. Guilty. We'll be back for more in a moment. What do you think is the best advice you ever gave someone?
Don't wear that.
You're not, how do I want to put this? You're not a young guy anymore. You're not a young kid.
I was so prepared for a spit take.
Oh, sorry. I'll be 71 next month. And sometimes when I stop and I reflect on where I've been and what I've done, I think to myself, I think my best days are behind me. Do you ever have those kinds of ideas or thoughts?
Sure. I just turned 60, and which was upsetting. But also, I turned a corner where I realized on the last 5 shows I've worked on, not in the theater or on television, I'm the oldest guy. I don't feel, like Christopher Plummer or something, but that's kind of the role I end up taking one way or the other. And even on a show, I did a show for 3 years that I'm very proud of on Netflix called Travelers. And even then, that was, it's 6-7 years ago, I was the oldest guy. And I kind of like that part. I was such an apprentice for so many years. I was mentored one way or the other by so many senior actors that to be the guy that is setting the tone, that is bringing his experience, I kind of like a lot.
Gravitas.
A bit of gravitas. I never had gravitas before. I rent it. It's not full time.
What is, do you think, the best decision you ever made?
Ooh, wow. My father really wanted me to go to a university. They were very supportive of what I did, but they also were that sort of classic, have a fallback position. Maybe you could teach acting or whatever. I did not. I went to a theater school in Toronto, and that was me at 18 going, no, I know what I'm doing. That was a big turning point for me. And then the travel, the decision to leave Toronto in '92 and try my hand in Vancouver, which to an American audience probably sounds like, yeah, North Dakota to South Dakota. It's like, no. There was a lot more television going on in Vancouver. It was a real decision to invest in myself. And that year, 92, I ended up doing just nonstop television stuff, a lot of it American that was shooting up there after 21 Jump Street. But then the decision a couple of years later to go south and stake my claim in LA, which took time. I mean, that would have been 93 that I did that, and I didn't get Will and Grace till 98. So I think the decisions that involve believing in myself professionally, that were risk-taking are the ones that clearly paid off.
Well, what do you think the best piece of advice you ever got was?
The problem with this question is that the answer is so cliched, but it is so true for me. And it's those 3 words, follow your dreams. And who did I get that advice from? I don't even remember. Probably a song, or this, or that. There's a song I sing now if I'm doing I have a bit of an act, and if I always close with the same song. It's called Dream of a Child by Burton Cummings. And the dreams I had as a kid were so specific to me. I'd see things on television and maybe base a game on that, but whatever it was, they were just my dreams, and I try to give my son that advice. It's not easy to say these days. Following your dreams doesn't necessarily, you can't monetize that necessarily. That's a tougher world, I think. But in my case, it's nothing more profound than that. If I hadn't, I would be very unhappy. I know I would.
Where is this show you do every once in a while? If I wanted to see it.
Yes, well, it's sometime I've my favorite friendships in my life, and I have a lot of them, is a man named Lauren Gold, who right now is the keyboard player for The Who and Chicago, and he goes back and forth between them. And we sometimes just get together at a small club like Vitello's used to be up the street or whatever, and we just do an evening of a lot of Billy Joel and Elton John, and I like obscure stuff too. But he and I put together a show that we've done only in a few cities, which is very much based on the kid I was, not before 12, but in my teens. And it's called The Concert I Never Gave, except for like 2,000 times in my bedroom. And it's me talking about this imaginative kid that knew he was going to be an actor, but for my teens, I just wanted to be a rock star, and that's all I did in my bedroom. But I really did it. I dressed up like Freddie Mercury and Alice Cooper, and I performed all of the Kansas Live album, and I was so lost in my rock dreams. And you'd think that maybe then I would have actually learned an instrument or started a band. Nope, it was just completely imaginary. So this show I do occasionally always for charity, but is just sort of a description of this, again, the dream stuff. It's like I dreamed about being Elton John, and now I know him, and I have Elton John stories, and I know Alice Cooper, and all
these rock stars you're naming are very theatrical.
Very theatrical, 100%, and so that concept of the dream of a child becomes the story of a man if you just
follow
it. And if you're lucky, I mean, the luck of Will and Grace was the outrageous number of guest stars we had, which allowed me to meet some of my heroes. Sidney Pollack and Gene Wilder and
Madonna, Cher. My heroes.
We have different heroes, yes. Though I loved Cher. When I was like 9. When I was 9, I think of the women on television. It was Elizabeth Montgomery from Bewitched, Cher, and then, this is an obscure one, but from the original Planet of the Apes, there was an actress named Lisa Hamilton, I think her name was, and she was Nova, the mute woman that Charlton Heston runs with into the Forbidden Zone. And that was pre-Farrah Fawcett's, on the wall. That was like
Did you have Farrah Fawcett on your wall?
Oh, of course I did. And Linda Carter and Cheryl Ladd. And
well, good for you.
Sure.
You're all American. You're not Canadian.
Well, there was not a lot of. I couldn't have Anne Murray on my wall. It was just, it was
No,
less,
not quite the same.
less hot.
Different league.
Different league.
Let me see. Wait.
What
has been the scariest thing to happen to you in the public eye? Do you like living in the public eye? You're still in, but you're so well known to fandom.
The honest truth is, I like my particular, whatever grade that is, of fame. It's just right. Like I go to Vons every day and shop. I mean, my level of fame has never got in my way. It almost always is just something happy. If somebody recognizes me, it's because they love that show. It's not because they're angry at me for something. So it's just a nice, it's a gentle level. I think this is so obscure that no one would care, but I was doing a show for TNT called Perception about 10 years ago, and I was asked to sing. Burton Cummings, who I mentioned before, is one of my heroes. He was the lead singer of the Guess Who, and huge solo career in Canada. And I was asked to sing at his being inducted into the Canadian Hall of Fame. And I was shooting the show here in town. It's like no way I could make it happen. But I was so determined that I flew a red eye between whatever it was after shooting all day. Got up the next day. Worked out this medley with his band. It was all supposed to be a surprise for him. But the combination of being exhausted and flying and not eating and having a Red Bull, I don't know what happened, but I got out on stage that night. It was being televised. And I don't know what came out of me, but it was terrible. It was terrible for the first 15 notes. And I'm staring at Burton Cummings, who's in the audience, kind of not 100% sure why that guy from television is singing his songs. And why is he singing it so badly? I have to say that's the thing that haunts me the most in the public eye.
I'm sure it was in your head and not in reality.
No, the first 8 to 10 notes were really bad.
How about Katie Lang? She's a famous Canadian who is very talented and who we don't see enough of anymore.
Agreed. I know Katie a little bit from the old days. That's it was a fundraiser in Hollywood one night that I think it was for the Elton John AIDS Foundation, because Elton was there, and she was going to do 5 or 6 songs in the backyard, maybe not even that many. She performs in her bare feet by the pool, and she did the Leonard Cohen song Hallelujah, which she killed. And then Elton came out and sat down, and they did Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word with him playing. Yeah, Katie's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. What a voice. What do you think is the best advice you ever gave someone?
Don't wear that. I say that one a lot. Not to you, Steve. You know, again, it's kind of the same thing. Like I think I'd take it away from this the cliche of follow your dreams. It's more the advice I tend to give now, as I say, is from a point of view of an older guy. And some of the younger casts I worked with, particularly Travelers, I was so impressed with all of these people. They were all in their 20s and all so good, but a couple of them didn't really have a kind of working routine yet, and I think there was one of them I just sort of took aside and said, you're going to get so much more out of this if you are fully off book, if you make every take count, because it's a show that we didn't have all the money in the world, so it's like come in and hit the ground running. I think I've never understood. Coming from the theater, there's a work ethic and there's an expectation of your co-stars, of anyone you're in the company with, that you're all going to come up to the same level, and that doesn't happen a lot, at least not all the time in television and film. There's somebody who's been taught something else that they'll find it, and it might take me 20 takes, or it might this or that. We had a guest star, Sean and I did on the podcast just yesterday, a wonderful actor named Marcus Flanagan, who had played my therapist in the second season of Will and Grace for one episode, and he falls for Grace. But he was telling a story that when we started the week, he and I had this one scene that was about 6 pages at the table, and then the next day they'd cut a page, and but eventually by show night it was cut down to about 2 pages. That's television, but we didn't get a lot of laughs. They cut the guts out of it. So after the first take, the writers said, "We're going to go back to Tuesdays. That's the 5-page one. You got it?" No, I don't got it. What are you talking about? No, I haven't memorized those lines. What are you talking? They said, "Well, it's right here. Just have a quick look." He said, I cannot do 3 new pages just like right now. That's asking a lot." And they said, "Well, we have to do it this way." He said, "Well, I'll be calling for lines." They said, "Okay." And he said, "Well, what about Eric?" And they said, "Oh, he's fine." Because I just, when it comes to memorizing lines, being your scene partner, having thought it through, being there for you, you can rely on me. I just think it's not just professionalism. It is a dedication to the nuts and bolts of this thing. If all you're dedicated to because some teacher told you that all that really matters is your character and you'll find it, and it's a wank.
I remember going to Will and Grace, taping of Will and Grace one time in particular, where they were changing a number of the lines after the first one seemed to work just fine, and everybody in the cast would just go with the flow, and they would be hysterical. The audience would be laughing, and it was great fun.
That's a real combination of a writing team that was never satisfied, never rested on their laurels, and a director that pushed for something better all the time. That's not funny enough. Something else. But when you have a live audience and they hear what we've been rehearsing for the last few days, and then they hear that a joke was just written, I think they go. But if it's really funny, they go bananas because they can't believe that they're seeing something that fresh.
Would you want to do another series?
Another sitcom?
Sitcom?
Yeah, I would love to do series for years. I love doing a drama series out of town. I love doing a sitcom here in town. The problem right now with the sitcom is just that it's a little outre at the moment. Nobody knows how to go back to what that is. And it's weird because young audiences just discovered Friends, and they obviously discovered The Office or whatever. There's a world where it could be reinvented. I don't personally know how to do it right now. I think the key to it, I'm just making this up as I say it, but it really got to me, always got to me, continues to, when people, like I say, they don't know that there was a studio audience there, when it's just, they think it's canned laughter, which is such an ancient thing from, the 60s. This
and
idea.
You can hear it.
Yeah, and you can hear, when it's fake. But I think people got used to thinking that they're all fake, and I think that's why, as a style, it doesn't resonate as much anymore. But maybe there's a way to do a sitcom live and make sure the audience is almost part of it, even if you just sense them there, that you sense, because whenever people see outtakes or see behind the scenes things for Will and Grace, it's so much fun because that's how loose and silly we were.
When you're sitting at home, what do you watch?
What do I watch
these days?
What have I loved? I loved The Great on Hulu.
There's so much to choose from.
There's so much to choose from. I'm one of those people these days where I'm just constantly scolded by my friends that you haven't seen. You tell me you've seen, because I can't keep up.
I have a friend who just said, "You haven't seen Murders in the Building?"
Right.
No, I haven't. Sorry. There's so many things to watch.
Yeah.
And then you have first-run movies and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
The dividing attention.
Particularly when you run into somebody here in town that that's in a show. And it's always what's worse, to tell them I haven't seen that show yet, or to tell them, well, I saw the first season. I don't know, maybe that rings worse. And I just...
didn't stick with
not
it.
For
Sorry.
me. Not for me.
Do you remember what was your lowest point in your career?
This, honestly, I think it would have been 2015. not that long ago. And it wasn't the point in my career. It was where I was. I just finished Perception. There was no fourth season forthcoming, so I really wanted to be back in a series. I'm always happy, and it was sort of that period at the end of 14 into 15, and it wasn't like I couldn't get work. In fact, there was two. I had to almost choose between two jobs at the top of 15, but I didn't feel one was a sitcom actually that Sean was producing that just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like right to go back to that, and the other was a drama on Fox that I ended up doing the pilot. But so it doesn't sound like the worst part of my career, right? But it was in some way because I just didn't know who I wanted to be. I didn't the same fears I was talking about before about Will, about going, oh my God, I might end up doing this for years, hit me again, and I got a real panic attacks of just, is this the next crucial choice? Turns out no, because it's a pilot that didn't get picked up, and that's the end of that.
And that's, yeah.
But I so enjoyed Travelers, which came the next year, that it was a low point because you start to wonder if there is another round for you. I don't need the things I do to be the most popular show on television. I really I love the act of making a series with a new group of people. And if the writing is good, like Slasher, for instance, I just had so much fun playing that character, and I knew it's a gore fest, really. I knew most of America probably wouldn't see it, but you can. It's on Shudder right now, season 5. But that's the one that comes to mind, I think, because my confidence was at its lowest.
Don't you think, though, that every actor has a certain amount of insecurity that goes with the job, goes with the territory?
I absolutely
Because
do.
it's so dependent on other people's opinions?
Yeah. No, I can only judge myself, but I've always been a heady combination of security and insecurity. I have tremendous belief in self since I was very young, and at the same time, there isn't any taping of Will and Grace or any stage performance that I'm not a real nervous wreck before, because the idea of failure looms large always, and just the insecurity of the business too, just of getting an actual job. Whether it was never enough just to get a job. I always wanted it to be something that I loved and that I looked forward to, and I've been really lucky in that.
How did you feel about auditions?
I liked auditions.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did. And and I can never quite figure out what that was, but since then, other people have expressed it better. Bryan Cranston had a great quote where he talked about, and Michael Keaton too, which talked about realizing as a young man that's your job that day. It's not about getting the job. The job is to be great in that room. And once I realized that, and that it wasn't about waiting around, that all the best I could do was just kill in that room, and then let go, forget it, and know that they're going to go with the other guy because he's taller or he's this or he's that. It's stuff that's out of my control.
I interviewed Bryan Cranston once, long before he was on, what was it, Malcolm in the Middle or whatever whatever show that was. I'm sorry, Bryan, if you're watching. He used to work. I was doing a series for CBS on dating, long before the internet, long before there were dating sites. He used to work for an agency on the west side here in Los Angeles where he would interview people who would come in and talk about themselves, and then those tapes would be shown to respective dates.
Right.
And he used to be the guy who would do those interviews. And then I encountered him later in his headier days as an actor. And it was just so funny, the things that people do. You worked for Baskin Robbins, didn't you?
That was my first job, yeah. I had a lot of, I think I had 8 or 9 jobs in Canada before the theater really started. 2 different men's stores, but Baskin Robbins was a big one because I made manager very quickly. There's a lot of trust.
What's your favorite ice cream?
Okay.
Favorite flavor?
I didn't think we'd get this serious, Steve.
Rocky Road.
I'm going to go pralines and cream.
Pralines and cream.
Mm-hmm. which was back then kind of an old person's flavor, but now it makes sense.
Now it fits right in.
Now it
huh?
fits right in.
Can you finish this sentence? My life would have been better had I...
Ooh, my life would have been better. It's so tough.
It's pretty good right now, isn't it?
It's pretty good right now, and I think there are certain opportunities that I didn't take, perhaps. But if I had, then maybe I wouldn't have met my wife, or then had my son, and you know what I mean. There's so I don't have. I have regrets about perhaps things I could have done better, but that's just that's just self-flagellation. I think I always the expectations I had of the business and of myself in it, and of fame, were pretty moderate. I think I'm happy at the at this.
You seem
level.
pretty normal.
I seem pretty normal.
That's the Canadian part. Huh?
That's the Canadian part. Yeah, I think that's always been a real mix. I married a Canadian girl, and though she was in the business, we've lived a very, well, to use your word, normal life, and there was a lot of that I liked. I wanted that. I don't know how well I would have done running around Hollywood as a single man.
I like to tell people, maybe I said this to you, Hollywood was good to me, but not good for me.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of truth to that, but I think the one thing I wonder about sometimes, because when I talk about, say, getting Will and Grace, that I was 35, and then all the kids, because they were kids, on Friends were all in, like, with the exception of maybe Lisa, they were all like 22, 23. They were just starting out, and so many of the shows that followed that were young people. I often thought, should I have come down here earlier? But then it's like, well, if I had, then I wouldn't have been ready. I wouldn't have been ready for when Will came along.
Does Hollywood seem too youth-oriented now?
Well, I mean, it would sound curmudgeonly to say that was the case. I mean, it's my mother used to say, I would. There's not enough movies for us. She said, there's this one movie, I think that looks good. That looks like it's very much about, older people. I said, well, are you going to go see it? Well, I think eventually. It's like, well, see, kids go to opening weekends, Mom. If you're gonna wait till, $2 Tuesday in a month, that's why they don't make movies for you. And so I understand the youth of it all, but everyone's youth. Right? There could be a movie about 42-year-olds, and I'm like, Jesus, they're 18 years younger than me. God damn it, Steve, we're old.
Ooh. Did anybody ever, I'm curious, did anybody ever tell you when you first took Will and Grace not to do it because it was a gay character?
No. I don't think that came up at all.
Can you see where the show had an impact on how gay people are perceived today?
Oh yeah, for sure. And yet we always maintain, because it's true, that we didn't have that in mind. It's a sitcom. But then I remember it was in 2012 when I hadn't spoken to Max Muchnick or the cast in a while, but all of a sudden he was calling around going, "Did you see Joe Biden on Meet the Press?" And he'd said that out of the blue, he just said Will and Grace had done more for marriage equality or whatever. It's like, wow. But I don't think I'd ever really thought that hard about the effect. It's when people come up, young people, and say, "You made it easier," and that's my favorite thing.
You did make it easier. Now it's nothing. I mean, Andy Cohen and Anderson Cooper on New Year's Eve, they can be just as
Yeah, sure.
gay as they want to be.
Well, the most important thing is young people not having to go through years and years of hiding and shame. We did it was Ben Platt came on the reboot of Will and Grace, playing a young, so very entitled gay man, because he'd had his parents had both wanted to throw. They were divorced, but they each wanted to throw a coming out party for him and stuff like that. Because if it's not true for everyone, and certainly not for the trans community, but it's gotten easier in general, I think, and if we had something to do with that, I love that.
Oh, you did. I can speak from experience. Yes, you did.
Well, that's good. Thank you.
I want to come meet Steve Kmetko myself. I laughed over that.
Yeah.
Clever use of the name, too.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
Thank
Eric,
you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Still Here Hollywood is a production of the Still Here Network. All things technical run by Justin Zangerle. Theme music by Brian Sanashin. And executive producer is Jim Lichtenstein.